So, hi, Mr. Heller. I'm Ricarda from Seriasten.tv. Yeah,
Ricarda.
hi. Thank you for taking the time again. I'm just gonna jump right to the questions now. To someone who hasn't really heard about the show Pennyworth, how would you describe what this show is actually about in like 3 to 5 sentences?
Oh, that's a good question. All right. Well, my first sentence would be just that it's set in the DC Batman universe, but you don't need to be familiar or in love with that world to appreciate the show. It's about a young man who gets out of the army and tries to make an independent life for himself in early 60s London, but he keeps getting dragged back into the violent world of intrigue that he came from.
Okay.
I guess that's the yeah.
Okay.
Simple terms, that's what it's about. Yeah.
So,
It's about a man who's fated to be a butler and desperately tries to avoid becoming a servant.
Okay. Was there any particular reason that you chose Alfred as the central character for this new show set in the Batverse? So why didn't you make a show about Rachel Dawes or Robin or anyone else?
Oh, yeah. I don't like. Well, let's not. I don't really know what to do with superheroes, with people with special powers, and they kind of suck all the air out of the room for other characters. And so I like your regular people, and I like regular people with a dilemma. And on a personal level, I wanted to shoot something in England, and in England, probably like the rest of Europe. I'm trying to think. We don't do superheroes. Don't do spandex and capes. That's a very American trope. As soon as you put someone in an English accent in tights, they sound silly. So that was the reasoning there.
Okay. Well, as far as I found out, the show is not directly based on any comic material, but is the entire show really original material by you, or are there certain plots, subplots, anything that is based on what we know about Alfred from whatever comic?
Well, you know what? The canon of the Batman world is so vast. It's hard to say definitively that we're not using things from some other version. But essentially, we've taken the Cockney ex-soldier shtick from Michael Caine and run with it from there. I think it was he who suggested that or insisted that his Alfred would be an ex-SAS soldier.
Michael Caine did that.
Which is really, as far as I know, I believe so. Yeah, prior to that, no one had actually, although anyone English of that age would have done national service. He was the first person to say, I want this bloke to be, a kick-ass ex-military veteran. Which makes obviously that makes the show possible, really, because you couldn't do a show about him learning how to serve tea and make biscuits and stuff.
Butler school. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, will there still be any characters or like any threats that we have heard from in other DC shows or comics or in other movies from the Bat universe? Will there be anything connected to it?
Yeah, Easter eggs, as they call them. Yes, further on down the line, but they will be consonant with the time period. It'll be for instance, Lucius Fox might well arrive. The parents of some of those villains will certainly make an appearance. But what we were trying to do with this show in particular was find English versions, English ways to tell the same kind of stories. So just as with the superheroes, we don't have those kind of supernatural superheroes. We don't have those kind of those similar villains. But what we do have is a whole world of sort of folk villainy that people around the world recognize. Jack the Ripper, for instance, Jekyll and Hyde, those sort of characters. And so we're going to mix and match. Both of those worlds are going to collide.
Okay. Next question would be the entire Batworth, what we know from other Batman films and so on, is usually more or less grounded in reality. Like there's not much supernatural about it. And when I watched Pennyworth, I saw that still this is not historically accurate London. Just the whole show has like this artsy, comic-y feel to it, the way he painted London, and then this fascist secret society and public executions and so on. So will this show stay somewhat in this gray area or go more like into supernatural fantasy direction or more towards reality?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's what distinguishes the Batman world from some of the other DC worlds is Batman doesn't have any special superpowers, although he's a very special character. So we're going to stay in that world, which is strange and gothic and slightly twisted, because that's really the world that Batman style suggests. It's familiar to us, but just a little strange, a little darker, a little sexier, a little more violent. Because that is if there is a joy in darkness, it's that slight twist on our world that makes it interesting.
Do you have like a plot for the entire show more or less laid out, or any plans for where you want to take Alfred with that show?
The great joy of making TV shows as opposed to movies is that you can just start singing, so to speak, and see how the song goes and see which characters work and what the audience likes. And once the characters are alive and the actors own them, then they kind of take on a life of their own. So on the one hand, I have sort of strong ideas in the direction that the show will go, partly because everyone knows what happens in the end. Which is sort of part of the pleasure of these sort of stories. But we try and keep as loose and as free as possible inside that format to go to unexpected places. You have to work out where the audience will expect you to go and then find somewhere else to go.
Okay. Lately you've been doing a lot of DC shows with first Gotham and now Pennyworth, but before you've done other stuff like The Mentalist. And I just wanted to ask, because we're a website for TV shows in general and movies, what shows do you watch personally? Is there like a favorite genre, or what do you enjoy to watch?
Yeah, good question. It's a bit of it's a bit like working in the cookie factory. You don't necessarily want to eat too many cookies yourself at the end of the day. And I tend to think, either it's better than what I'm doing and then I'm bitter about it, or it's not as good and then why am I watching it? But I try and avoid the same kind of genre. What shows have I liked recently? Narcos, a show about the drug trade in South America. That's a great show. Called The Midwife, strangely enough, about women running a midwifery clinic. Deadliest Catch. I don't know if you have that over there.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
I actually did the PR for that when it first launched on Discovery. Sorry, just the button there. It's an interesting show.
Yes.
Okay. Well, actually, my last question is, what drove you to work with DC? Were you a comic reader as a kid, or how did you get to do comic shows or shows based on comic material?
Pure just luck. I was working for Warner Brothers, making The Mentalist, and they work very closely with DC, and these days is very important, just from a sort of showmanship point of view, to have stories that in worlds that people recognize, that you're telling stories that are that have some connection to the audience already, because there's so much material out there now. You have to have some kind of branding to make it work. And my sensibility and the DC sensibility is sort of compatible but different. So it's always it's fertile ground when looking at that material, because if you can bring something fresh or different to it, then you're onto a good thing, and I think that's why it's worked.
Have you been reading comics as a kid or teen?
You know what? When I was a kid, American comics were very difficult to get hold of. So just pre the period when you could get a regular supply. So my comic book life as a kid was English comics, which no one would remember except old English guys.
Okay.
But that means that I'm able to take that sort of Batman world to a degree freshly, you know?
Well, okay. That was it from my side. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really enjoyed watching the first 5 episodes of Pennyworth so far. And yeah, let's see where that show goes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.